Ladies and gentlemen, it is your boy CIZY back at it again with another episode of the Voices of Value podcast. And today, if you're watching this on video, we have a very special guest that you might already know if you are a local Kansas Cityan. If you're not a local Kansas Cityan or you don't already know, we're gonna have this lovely young lady introduce herself in 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead and say what's up to the people and introduce yourself.
Well, hi everybody watching the podcast. My name is Dulcinea Herrera. Me and my family own a coffee shop, a Latin indigenous coffee shop called Cafe Corazon here in Kansas City. I'm also an artist, a model. In 2021, I was Miss Kansas City Latina. So I was able to really speak with people, with a lot of children and a lot of little girls, and I felt like being a role model to them was really inspirational. It's kind of like what you talked about. When you see someone that looks like you, you're like, oh, I can do that too. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, Latin women are portrayed very sexually in the media. It's very much, which there's nothing wrong with sexuality, but I just feel like it's never like a strong woman, and it's not about her looking a certain way. It's always portrayed a certain way. So I didn't want to really give that. I wanted to give more. And I feel like I used my platform, and that was really cool. So, but now fast forwarding, my mom is Argentinian and my dad is a Mexican and Native American. So my dad's Native American from New Mexico, so it's called Mezcalero Apache. So we have a lot of things that we incorporate in our coffee shop. Coffee mainly comes from Latin America and indigenous people, but no one ever talks about that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we do this thing in America where we take from cultures and we never pay homage to them. That was something me and my family did not want to do. So when we started to realize that the coffee industry can be a bad industry depending on who you're giving your money to, we really wanted to change that. So all of our coffee is beyond fair trade, meaning everybody is being treated fairly, the workers are being paid fairly, and we know that. And we know the countries they come from, where some places just buy beans and they don't know. So it is a slave industry. It's the third most important thing in the world. So a lot of bad things can happen with that.
That I feel like is something that people probably underlook completely, like where your coffee beans come from. I've literally never thought about that in my entire life, with respect, being honest. Right. Never thought about that, but like when we think about these larger companies, we don't need to yell out any name. Starbucks, Dutch 7 or whatever that place is called. But anyways, and I'm sure there's plenty of other smaller but larger scale coffee shops we could throw out there too, but we ain't going to. That, you know, just buy basically mass wholesale, not having any idea where it's coming. It's like, yo, where can we get some coffee beans? Oh, they say it's from this place. Cool, we're gonna buy it. No further research, no further, you know, understanding behind where the products come from. Just buy and, you know, add some sugar and some other shit, and we're good to go, right? So I do want, you gave like so much information in like 10 seconds. No, it's good. You gave me some things to run off of. So let's start back at ground zero, your parents, okay? So your mother's from Argentina or Argentinian. We can dive into a little bit about her background and your father's background as well. So I want to start with your mother. Like, is everyone, like, you know, culturally and family-wise from Argentina and from Mexico, or born there? Like, let's run from there, and then like how. Basically, I just want to know how you guys ended up in Kansas City. To jump to the conclusion is what I'm trying to say. But I would love to hear more of the cultural history behind how your parents grew up, because that impacts who you are and the questions we're going to ask you today. So
yeah, so my mom, she's first generation Argentinian, so she wasn't born there, but her family is from there. My dad, his family, he's second generation Mexican, but native. So we kind of are split in that way. So he's half and half. So we have family in New Mexico on the native side, which is cool. That's where I'm born, actually. Oh, wow. And then we have family in Mexico, and then we have family here. So a little bit about my mom. Yes, ma'am. She was born on a hippie commune. My grandparents were big hippies in the 70s when it was like anti-war, peace, love, let's love everyone. So my grandparents were very much on that vibe, and that's how they met here in America. So that is a whole
that's a whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
Like the 70s, the
Such a cool-
hippie years, right? My dad talks to me about it sometimes because he's born in 47, so in the 70s he's like almost 30.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like
That's
he
an
talks to me about just like how big of a movement that was. But I think people at my age, I don't know how old you are, but my age don't really think about the fact that there was like there was literally communities who would gather and live together under this like culture. So that's crazy in itself, but amazing. So continue.
Cool, yeah. So my mom grew up in New Mexico. She's very intelligent. She traveled all over the world. They never had anything. Like, they were just like poor, living in the mountains. But my mom would figure stuff out. She's just always been very proactive. If she wants to do it, she will find a way to do it. And she became a professional flamenco dancer, and she moved to Spain. She lived there for a while, and then she came back. And
what's that? Sorry, we can't move past that.
She's cool.
So you said professional flamenco dancer, and it sounded fire, so my mouth dropped. But I don't actually know what it is. So,
I got you.
So I need you to break it down for college and for the folks. What is a flamenco dancer? That sounds gangster.
So flamenco is a Spanish and Moors culture together. They mixed and they made this dance. But it's also African dance mix because, as we know, a lot of the dances we have dancing from Africa mixed in a lot because Africans are badass and they can dance well. So it's that kind of dance, and it's usually they wear dresses that are like red and like fluffy at the end, and they kind of do this like weird stuff.
That's fire.
It kind of looks like tango, but it's not. And they have a guy like playing the drums, and they have like a bunch of instruments.
If I put a YouTube video up right now, do you think I'd like recognize the dance? You feel me? Like,
Maybe.
Is it something that you feel like people see in like a movie, or might see in a show, or might see like does that make sense?
Yeah,
like, is it
for
something
sure.
that you feel like people would recognize at the side? Because when you did that, I was like, I feel like I know what you're talking about. I was like, I feel like I know what you're talking about, but I don't know if I really know what you're talking about. But that sounds fire. Okay, so she becomes a professional flamenco. Am I saying it right?
Flamenco, yeah.
Flamenco dancer. I swear I'm not trying to culturally appropriate, just trying to say it the right way. And she moved to Spain.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember what age she was? Like,
She was
that's gangster.
young. She was like, so I'm 23. I think she was 21.
Wow. So she was a young boss. So she up and goes to Spain.
She
Continue.
just did it, and she walked in the Peace Corps in Russia.
Wow.
Because there was a war going on, something. But then she came back to America and she met my dad and they fell in love. But they had me in 3 months of knowing each other. Okay, it was a little bit of a mistake, baby.
Snap, make it happen.
No, for sure. My dad, on the other hand, so he grew up in Western Kansas because they had to move here. A lot of the times, a lot of Mexicans or immigrants come to Kansas City or the outskirts because there's a lot of beef plantation jobs. And farm jobs.
Yeah.
So he worked in the beef plants and in the farm since he was a kid.
Wow.
And he, unfortunately, during his time, to speak Spanish, to show your culture was not cool. Like you would get beaten, your family would get beaten.
Wow.
In school, if he spoke Spanish, they would beat him. So it was very much like they would embrace their culture, but they had to do it in secret. So my dad, he teaches me a lot of things about Native culture, Mexican culture. Like, for example, I sage en Palo Santo in my house. I do it every time before I paint, It's very sacred to me, but he had a hard life because of it. And he has 14 brothers and sisters, so he has a big family. So we have a really big family. But yeah, that's kind of how they grew up very differently, but they still, I feel like something cool that they had was they always understood the value of their people and the importance of their cultures, and that it needed to be respected, and nobody was respecting their cultures at the time. So
that's facts, especially in that specific generation. I mean, we're still struggling with it today as a society, but at least in my opinion, there's a slight progress in the right direction, right? There again, so many things I want to dive into, but one thing I did miss. Okay, so your mother was in Spain. She comes back to the States. Your father grew up primarily in Western Kansas, you said, or in Kansas City, Kansas? I didn't hear.
Garden City, Kansas.
We know Garden City. We know Garden City. I don't know if it's Western, but I do know of Garden City, Kansas, and have been through it. I just don't know if it's West, North, South, Central. But either way,
Right.
I didn't catch how they ended up in the same place at the same time to meet, right?
So my mom moved back to New Mexico, and my dad at the time, I don't even remember, I think he was visiting family in New Mexico, but he was at this restaurant, he was making muffins, and my mom said her friends would go in this restaurant, and they were like, oh, this guy's cute, come meet the Muffin Man. They called him the Muffin Man.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Shout out to the Muffin Man.
My dad.
That's
the
amazing.
Muffin Man. He still makes good muffins.
Do you guys call him the Muffin Man on occasion for fun?
And he's like, it's like, oh
He's
my
like,
god. Yeah.
Only my wife can say it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely that vibe. But she went in, and my mom, Argentinians are very like, they're very posh. Yeah. They're not like Brazilians. My fiance is Brazilian. Yeah. Brazilians are happy. They like hug you, very warm. But Argentinians are non-warm. So my dad said when he would like try to talk to my mom or hit on her, she would just be like, she was like, I'm too good for you.
We need Mon to make an appearance on the next episode.
Oh my gosh.
As a matter of fact, we just got to do a part 2 just so we can run this story back and hear what Mom has to say.
Oh my gosh. But I think finally she was like, okay, I'll go on a date with this guy or whatever. And they went, and 3 months later
you were born. There we go. Are you the firstborn?
I'm my mom, yeah.
Awesome.
So my dad had my brother Angelo with someone else.
Older or younger?
He was older than me.
Nice.
When I was...
That makes sense,
yeah.
My bad. I ain't trying to get too deep. My bad.
No, and my dad had a kid when he was about 17 or 16, so he was a lot younger. But yeah, me and my brother are super close. I love my brother. So.
I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit of the familial origins. So what city are you born in? So I know you explained they met in New Mexico. You know, he's the Muffin Man, she's the queen walking in, letting people know she's the queen. And they met and they went on a date. How did they end up in Kansas City, Missouri? Or how did you guys end up in Kansas City, Missouri? Because now I'm running it back. You said you were born in New Mexico. So you're born in New Mexico. From there, where's the connection to KC happen?
Yeah, so what happened was, where we lived in New Mexico, it's very deep in the mountains. It's so beautiful. But there isn't a lot of work there. And it was a different way of life, which I'm glad I grew up that way. It was like we would farm, we would hunt for our food. To get heat in the house, you have to get firewood. It's not like you can press a button and like heat your house. So it was very much like in nature, and you had to work really hard to like stay alive because it's so far from everything. There's not really like a city near where we lived. But they got to a point, because of that way of life, it was just like I was growing up. I was about to start high school, and they wanted opportunities for me. They wanted me to go to a good college. So they said, okay, I had some uncles that lived here. Let's move to Kansas City. So then we moved to Kansas City, and I had my high school here, my high school years and my college years.
And dive right into that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Where did you go to high school? Like, what was that experience like? Was there a culture shock? Was there not a culture shock?
Oh, yeah.
Being that those are 2 different locations, mountains to city,
right?
Semi-west coast to, it's not the coast, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Semi-west America to the middle of America. So talk to me about maybe some obstacles you faced, and what was like the high school vibes like, or are you just super easy to get along with and you made friends in like a day? Like, talk to me about that early 14, 15, young adult life where you're really developing into and growing into the woman you're going to eventually become as you get older. So talk about that for us.
So it was interesting because it was a very big culture shock for me. So where I come from, it's just Latinos and natives. That's really all. So like, I never experienced people like putting a stereotype on me. I never had that because I was like everyone where I was. But when I came here, it was really different. Like, I had people stereotype me, sexualizing me. It was really weird. And then, like I said, we had to work for like our heat in the house, things like that. And I thought everyone was rich who had a heater in their house. And then I realized everybody has a heater in their house here. It's so normal. But I started to realize, because of the way I grew up, I valued things so much, like the little things, like having heat in your house, or not having to use an outhouse sometimes. That I saw that the Americans here, and it wasn't their fault. It's just, it is a privileged way of being when you have things that are so accessible to you. Whereas most countries or places in the world, it's third world. So people don't have that.
Yeah.
We're so spoiled as Americans, really, in majority of the places we live. So that was a culture shock for me to see how people kind of were like, oh yeah, like this is normal. Like they didn't really value things. I felt like, and that kind of upset me sometimes. But I tried to make the best out of it. So I really, just whatever I wanted to do, I would just go for it. And honestly, I felt like my high school years were kind of fun. I was a little introvert, so I would like be the one with the music down the hall, and I would just be like doing my thing.
The hoodie and the
a little bit. Yeah, I was definitely like, I don't give a fuck.
Vibing.
Definitely that. But then I went to college at UMKC for my business degree.
Nice.
And then I graduated last year with a bachelor's in
Congratulations. Congratulations. If I had some wine, I would cheers, and then I would set it down because I don't drink. But but I would cheers you just for the show. Just for the show. Okay, so I do have a follow-up question. So talk to me a little bit about go a little bit deeper about the community life in New Mexico where you grew up, because what I'm wondering, and I'm sure the audience is wondering, is New Mexico is a U.S. state,
Right.
It's an American state. We would assume, whether poor or whether rich, that you'd have access to heaters in all the houses nearby, or standard restrooms always in everyone's house nearby. I know you say you grew up semi in the mountain. So just break down the culture of the community you grew up in, just to help them kind of understand a little bit more about what you mean you came from a different place than Kansas City, if that makes sense. A lot of people might just be like, New Mexico, Missouri, like everything U.S. is the U.S. Right.
I would say if there's any state that does not feel like United States, it's New Mexico. It's so different. Everything's adobe. So it's like adobe is made of hay and clay.
It looks very beautiful.
It's so
Look it up in images on Google right now. Go do it.
It's in South America. There's a lot of adobe. There's also a lot of adobe in Europe and Africa too. But it's super cool, and they're like, even the Walmarts are adobe.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
It's kind of wild. Yeah. And then all the windows are always painted turquoise. Why, I don't know. It's just the vibe. But it is a poor state, and it's a very rural state. The main city, Albuquerque, it's very tiny.
It is. I got stuck. I'll share that story later. Continue.
But we were 3.5 hours from Albuquerque, so we were deep in the mountains. So that's why it's so difficult where we lived, is because it wasn't a city or it wasn't a tourist area. It was very deep in the mountains. We actually had 200 miles of national forest behind our house.
Wow.
So there was stuff people never even walked on.
Wow.
Which was so beautiful.
No, that is beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah. I felt very connected to the earth. I felt it was I'm glad I had that experience. But yeah, there it is, everyone has to get firewood unless you live really rich in Albuquerque or Santa Fe. Usually you have to get firewood for sure. And it's a little more like other countries where people buy the meat and the produce from farms around, whereas here in Kansas City or other places, you can go to Aldi and you can get any beef, or maybe not any beef, but you can get certain ingredients, even though it might not be good ingredients, because it might be coming from a place that's
from 17 factories.
Literally injected.
This part of the meat was created here.
Yeah.
But this part of the meat was created there.
For sure.
You're trying to tell me the meat was created in two different places. Yeah, and what exactly do you mean by created?
Right. No, literally, was it injected? Is it really a cow anymore?
Side note, have you guys seen the news article? Now, I didn't read too much into it, but I'm pretty sure it's on enough valid news sites for me to believe that it's actually happening, that the FDA... Look, I am not promoting truth here. I'm just sharing a thought that I saw. But no, they're saying they can now create, straight up create, totally fake meat.
That's weird.
It's meat, but it's not from
an animal.
It's just I was like, nah, that's just wild.
Oof.
Wow. But anyways, moving on. Okay. And what high school did you go to?
I I went to Shawnee Mission North.
Nice. Okay. So
Yeah.
when you finish high school, you go to UMKC. I assume by that point, you do 4 years of high school. You have a friend group. You have a community. Yeah. Awesome. And did anybody from your community of friends go to UMKC with you, or was that a whole new start once again?
That was kind of a new start. Mm-hmm. And when I went to UMKC, I didn't have the idea of I wanted to have a college experience. The cafe had already just opened actually in 2019, and I was going to college in 2018. So I kind of had this idea in my head that I was like, I'm here to get this degree and that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm here to learn, but it sounds bad because I feel like now looking back, I should have taken advantage of the groups where you meet people and you network and things like that. But I was very much I'm going to work and then I'm going to school. So shout out to my people who who take advantage of the college life, because that is honestly, it helps you a lot, I think. But no, I just went through it, got my degree, and then I just kept working at the cafe. I learned some stuff in college, but to be honest, I learned everything with the cafe. The majority of the stuff they taught me in the marketing college, it was stuff that was 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So, they didn't teach us about social media, anything, which is so important, you really integral. Need to know that, So that was something I had to figure out on my own.
How did you find it? Do you feel like your experience in university was a little bit more valuable though, since you had it combined with the business experience, working at a business that your guys' family owns? So you're learning the business, but then also learning about some, whether they're old fundamentals or not, but some fundamentals of business, and combining the two. Do you feel like it was more valuable, or do you feel this is still boring, this is still not that useful, and you're just getting it done to get it done? Now, the reason I ask is because I have heard from some people who started businesses while they were going through, studying their undergrad for business, or while maybe they went back to school, maybe they went to, a long time ago, they went to school for something else, but then they started a business, went back for, a business program, and felt like the two combined were helpful. How do you feel?
That's fair. I think it was somewhat helpful. I think the most helpful classes were the ones that involved sales, because sales it changes, but the way you approach things will never change. Whether it was 30 years ago or today, things change, but there's still a way to say things. There's still a thing that people like to see, an organization component to it. So those were the things that I think I learned the most on. And maybe the psychology of understanding someone and what they would like. That I think I learned a little bit on. But yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, I'm not trying to boast, I feel like I sound like an asshole a little bit. No,
you're just sharing your experience. Your reality is your reality at the end of the day.
If y'all think she's an asshole, you can
comment
below.
Oh, no, please.
Matter of fact, actually, no, because you'll get blocked.
Yeah. And I'll block you.
You'll get blocked on her YouTube, my YouTube, everybody's YouTube getting blocked.
But I do feel like there were certain professors that I felt oh, my phone's ringing, but I'm gonna turn on
Spam calls. We love spam calls. By the way,
love them,
anybody who wants to spam call my phone with advertising opportunities for the podcast, let me know. Do you feel me? But no, sorry, continue.
I felt like some of the professors, they would actually come to me and ask me for advice, because they were when doing research, or them even just telling us about their past, they had failed a business, so they went to become a professor, which there's nothing wrong with failing in business. You fail a lot in business, but I just felt like sometimes I knew a little more than them,
which
that frustrated me.
Yeah, I was about to say, which can be pretty frustrating in my opinion.
Right.
I think that's the one of the challenges a lot of people, both young people who are about to start businesses, but you see it a lot with I don't know, we could throw out random names, Gary Vaynerchuk, different people, different content creators who create content around business often complain about a valid complaint that the majority of these professors that are supposed to be teaching business 101 or entrepreneurship 101 have never, well, luckily enough, some of your professors actually tried to start a business, but some have never even, and it's just a route that they're like interested in, so they get thrown in. It's just like, how are we supposed to learn from you? And yeah, so I would find that to be very frustrating. But
and there's nothing wrong with failing in business. I just want to point that out. We have failed so many times, but I think it's just about getting back up, to be honest. Like most billionaires even say they failed like thousands of times.
Yeah.
It's just that they kept going, and that's the only reason they're billionaires. They just did not quit. But yeah, I think it's the not quitting part that honestly is one of the most important aspects.
We could do a whole podcast about the impact of consistency and just showing up. I say it all the time when I'm like coaching my classes or coaching the client. I'm like, just like money, I ask my clients, do you know what compounding interest is? And they're like, yeah, you add like $5 into your savings account every week, and over time, before you know, you got, you know, because of interest or this, or you put it in an investment account over 40 years. Oh shit, I'm a millionaire. All I did was put $100 in every week. You know what I'm saying? But that's because of compounding interest. This is the same aspect when it comes to health and wellness, or when it comes to a business. Like if you can put in consistent inputs and efforts, like 10 years down the line, you're gonna see those benefits. But wow, like I feel good, I still look good. All my counterparts that didn't do that are, not that it's a competition, but are all the way back here. You know, I'm glad that I made the decision to put in the effort. So it totally makes sense. I want to talk about how you're, so the idea of Cafe Corazon.
Yeah, for sure.
Who originates it? Where does it start? Like where's ground level of like when it was written down on paper or just set in a kitchen? Like what's the origin story from the get-go
of it? Yeah, so it was actually my mom's idea. She loves coffee and she loves yerba mate, which is something we have that the only other places that have it are coast to coast, so California, Miami, and New York. But yerba mate is an Argentinian, basically tea, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. But she really wanted to do a coffee yerba mate place. But when we started to really research as a family, like the coffee industry, that's when we were like, oh man, like there's more than just a coffee shop here. Like there's a mission. There's more than just us as a family. Like there's also our ancestors involved in this a little bit. Like I feel like there's more work to do than just open a shop. And it still feels that way, will always feel that way. So my mom wanted to do it. She wanted to give the bean a voice, we call it. So like give the cultures a platform, a way to almost educate people. Because I feel like I often have to educate people who don't know about coffee or who don't know about the like cultures, Latin American cultures, which is totally cool. I mean, I'm glad that they're like interested in being educated, you know, on that. But she started. My dad is a construction worker, so he's a builder. So he can build anything. We had really big troubles getting our coffee shop open, the first one in Westport. We went to like every space, we'd call them. The moment we would say, we're gonna be a Latino coffee shop, they would just not call us back. Wow. We went to probably like 10 to 15 spots, and they were just like, it was so weird. They would kind of be rude to us. Like once we started to say that, we even had a woman say like, are there gonna be piñatas in here? Like saying it in a way that was like, oh shoot, like now you're putting
that's one of those
Mexican
things.
People.
That's one of those things where you get caught off guard. You over here on the phone.
Like what? And
what?
She said that to our face.
Oh, in person. Oh, she was bold.
We were like, what? So it was just very, very rude. And we would have on our Crossroads location after we opened the Westport one. It was easier to open that location because people had already known about us at that point. The only reason we got the Westport location though is because a car had driven into it actually, and it was messed up. And my dad said, look, we really want to open a coffee shop here. I will fix it. And the guy was like, okay, cool. Like, if you're gonna fix my building, that owner is really awesome, but I think it almost took
something like that to happen, right?
For them to open their eyes to us. But yeah, so when we started, my mom is like super smart and very organized. So she's very much brains, like figuring out, okay, this is the price of this. My dad is a builder, so he's really good at making things look nice with cheap products. Because you know, like I feel like minorities, we're like this. When we don't have a way, we just figure it out.
Yep.
You know, whether it's with $2 in your bank account, you just gotta make it work. So And then I was doing managing at the time and social media and like marketing, website, all of that stuff. So that's kind of how it's.
I love it. And the funny thing is, this is how I found out that you guys had the Crossroads location. So I originally heard about Cafe Corazon from sorry baby if you watch this, but from this one girl that I was talking to who would always want to meet there, and every time we would meet there we get that yerba mate. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's where you guys
Also, side note, amazing health benefits around yerba mate. Please do your research. If she has anything to share about it, then I will definitely give her the floor to share that. But definitely do your own research on that. And if you're looking for something that is just plenty of health benefits. If you don't like coffee, get rid of coffee, go to yerba mate. It's
true. You're
gonna get the same vibes, but even more health benefits.
Yeah.
I'm speaking super broad term. I just want you guys to go do your research. So yeah, anyways, I used to go there with her all the time. And so I knew that location was there. But then maybe a year and a half ago, probably about a year and a half ago, me and a friend of mine were trying to start a podcast podcast production company. And I was like, yo, all right, meet me at a cafe. And he's like, meet me at Cafe Corazon. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I go to the location that I know, the Westport location. That's the only one I know. I hop off the highway from where my lady used to live. I hop off the highway and I drive straight down this road, and Cafe Corazon's on my right. I knew it with the back of my hand. I'm like, boom. Pull up there, bruh. I'm sitting there for like 35 minutes, and I'm just like, I know he didn't ghost me. So I call him. I'm like, bro, where you at? He's like, Cafe Corazon, bro. I've been waiting for you. I'm like, bro, I'm waiting for you, dog. You must have went to the wrong place. Like, bro, you know they got 2 locations. I was like, where the other one? Crossroads. I said, yeah, I'm at the wrong one. I'll be there in a little bit. And I pulled up there, and I was like, oh, this one's even bigger. I was like, it was cracking when I went in. I was like, it was vibes, So anyways, I found out about like a year and a half ago, and now I live 2 blocks down. So there's a story to my foundational find out. That's not even a word, but we're gonna go with it. No, that's amazing.
We make up definitions.
So
that's all words are made up.
You spoke about the mission. I want you to talk a little bit more about the what word? I'm gonna use a flower ambiance, the vibe, the vibe, the environment of each location, and how you guys thought about the build out in terms of like aesthetics. I don't necessarily mean like the concrete product you used to build, but the cultural aspects where you walk in and you're like, what's that? Or what does this art piece represent? Or what's that? Like, how did that process happen? Like, who's running that? What's the inspiration behind? You can share anything. It could be a random painting you like in one of the spots. But yeah, just talk about some of like the art, talk about some of the the aesthetics of each location and why it ended up that way.
I like that. So yeah, just to break it down, so we have Westport and Crossroads location.
Shoot the address out for them real quick. Write this down.
Westport location is 1721 Westport Road, Kansas City, Missouri. And then the downtown location is 110 Southwest Boulevard, Kansas City, Missouri. So our Westport location is a little smaller. The Crossroads is a little bigger, a lot bigger actually. The Westport location is a little more of an Argentinian, South American flair. And the reason we did that is because that was my mom's baby. So that's her side of the family. Of course, we incorporate all Latin American countries, but we still give them the individuality, because I think a lot of times people find that they're like, oh, like you're Latino, you're Mexican, or they just like stereotype you. But every country has its own way of speaking, their own religions, their own cultures, their own everything. It's like, so different.
To a point where certain people speaking Spanish or native Spanish speakers still don't understand other native Spanish speakers. Literally. To that extent.
And then you have countries like Brazil, they speak Portuguese. They don't even speak Spanish.
Obrigado.
But yeah, so our Westport is a little more Argentinian, I would say. We actually have a mural that is done by 2 muralists. They're Uruguayan and Mexican. Their names are Isaac and Rico. They do a bunch of murals. They're Latinos. But the mural is kind of the Virgen and Frida Kahlo. It's like her face is mixed in between, so she kind of looks like both. And the cities are Buenos Aires and Kansas City behind her. And then you have a Colombian flower, a Brazilian flower, an Argentinian flower, and I think it's the sunflower from Kansas City. So she kind of embodies that. She's kind of like a goddess a little bit. And then you come to the Crossroads location. That was a little more of my dad's flair. So the mural in the Crossroads location is an indigenous woman. She's kind of like an indigenous goddess. She's not from one specific tribe, but she does have the Aztec halo around her head. And she's holding corn, maíz, and coffee, a lot of the things that we use in our coffee. And she's holding it like this, and she's kind of looking at you. But the reason we did her like that is because we wanted to show people, like, she's saying, hey, this is mine, you know, respect my culture. I'm going to share this with you, but don't take it from me. Because there's a lot of...
Say it again.
Don't take it from me.
This is my culture. I'm going to share it with you, but...
Don't take it.
That's a bar, sorry. Continue.
No, it's okay.
That was powerful.
Hey.
No, for real, yeah.
But that's more of the Crossroads vibe. So yeah, we're very aware of colonization. I mean, the only reason we call them Latinos is because it's a mix of everybody, you know. There's African blood, there's indigenous blood, and there's European blood, and there's usually blood from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to tell people is, like, Latinos don't have a face. Really, like, you could be dark, light, you could have curly hair, straight hair. That's, I think, what people a lot of times have a difficulty with seeing Latinos. They think they look a certain way, but they really don't. Like, there's so many ways to be. Like, for example, I have family who's blonde hair, blue-eyed, like my program, and then they'll just talk to you and they're speaking Spanish, and you're like, I thought you were white. So
and that's so real. That makes me want to, like, sorry to interrupt, but, like, dive into your experience in your culture around race and color of skin. Now, the reason I ask is because I know, as you know, I was about to say African American, but it depends on what you consider African American. See, I'm African and American, but I'm not African American.
I see, yeah. No, I know.
I'm African and American. But anyways, coming from, I'm just gonna go ahead and categorize myself, even though I don't technically categorize myself only as this, but society typically puts me in the category of being a black man in America, right? Just African American, right? And so, you know, tend to identify with that growing up because that was the box that I was put in, right?
Right.
Now, when I speak to some of my Latin friends, especially when I would travel to New York, I have a lot of friends, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, specifically inside of that culture. And I know you're not coming from that culture, but just in terms of your friend groups or conversations you've had being in this space of trying to represent, you know, all the big mix of cultures.
Right.
My question is, have you heard of, or what are your thoughts on, or have you heard anything like about how, and am I saying that, is it Latinx when I'm speaking about the entire community, or how would you recommend that I
feel like Latinx is the best because there's also there's a lot of debate on what to say, you know, and I understand why. Like, when you are, it's even like with my family who's native, they don't like to be called Native American. They want to be called by their tribe, and I get it. It's like, like that makes sense. But Latinx is like a good term to broaden. To
try to broaden it, but about being called black is what I was trying to get to. It's like, oh no, I'm not black. I've heard that a lot when I'm talking to my friend. I'm like, bro, you black? And they're like,
I see.
No, I'm not black. I'm like, bro, like, if you come right here to ask a police officer what kind of skin you are and ask them to treat you gonna be black. Like, I'm not saying you black by culture, but you are definitely black. No, I'm not black at all. Hell no.
I see what you're saying. You know what I'm saying?
Like, I don't know if you've ever had experience or conversations around that. If not, we can totally jump over and move on to another conversation. But just wondering, thoughts or like what you've heard from other community members in terms of, just that topic. I don't know how else to ask the question. Yeah,
for sure. Well, yeah, because I don't think I have African blood, right? But I have friends who are like Dominican, what even they call themselves they call it Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino. So that's the term they use and that they'd like to use. As far as my friends go, I'm not sure about everyone else. And I don't want to like ever disrespect
generalize
anybody.
or throw them. Yeah.
No, but I have had friends, you know, who are like Dominican and they go somewhere and they start speaking Spanish and everybody's like, "You're black, why do you speak Spanish?" And they're like, like
reverse,
I'm
right?
from Dominican, like I can speak Spanish, or like just things like that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes like I've even had my friends tell me where they'll go somewhere, like for example, Argentina. It's more of a like a white looking culture.
Yeah.
You go there, people have blonde hair and blue eyes. Not everybody, but it's common. Where they've gone there or places like it, and someone's like trying to touch their hair, and they're still in Latin America,
Right.
but because it's a different country, it's so different, people like don't understand, or they can be racist towards them. I think also, kind of on this topic, the beauty standard in Latin America is very interesting because colonization really messed people up. There's a thing called caste systems.
Yes, I'm familiar from the Indian culture with caste systems. So how is it
here?
Yeah, go ahead and continue. Yeah.
So when the colonizers came, the Spanish, all the Europeans, they made this thing called caste systems. So it was basically like drawings of if you were an African and you had a baby with an African, you were the lowest caste system. If you were an indigenous person, you had a baby with indigenous, you were the lowest. If you were black and you had a baby with a European, your caste went up. So they would put these everywhere. And they were like posters, and it was terrible. So people started to believe that. So now, unfortunately, when you go to some places in Latin America, if you are blonde and blue-eyed, you are the most beautiful thing on earth. And they will like make you feel like you're not as beautiful if you have dark skin. Like, I have friends whose family would tell them, "Oh, Mika, don't go in the sun. Your skin's gonna get dark. Like, that's not gonna be pretty." Which is so like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it's very prevalent in Latin America. Latinos sometimes it's just like embedded in the culture.
Right.
It depends on the culture.
When you're born and that's all you know and that's all you hear and that's what you were like fed.
Right.
And that's typically how you are gonna return that same thing when you grow up until somebody interrupts that pattern.
Right.
So it's understandable.
There is a lot of like black and brown people not feeling beautiful, and that's really unfortunate. Like there's this, like I have some beautiful friends, but they, because of how they grew up, they don't feel beautiful, and that's terrible.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's a systematic racism that has been happening for so long that it has brainwashed people.
Literally, it's wild, and the fact that there's just, I think one thing that I appreciate about Cafe Corazon and you guys like emphasizing the importance of culture and heritage is because I think as much as it is prevalent, like people are always talking about it, there's so much more history and culture behind cultures that we don't even think about. Like we don't even talk about. Like there's somebody that probably just heard that. It's like, that's the first time I heard that before. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know there was. I mean, if somebody walked in here right now, I mean, to be completely honest, if someone walked in here right now and they look like Graham and they was like, "Yo, I'm Latin American," I'm like, "Yeah, right." I wouldn't say that, but in my head, I'm like, "Really?" You know what I'm saying? So it's like we all have so much to learn about people's history, people's culture, and it only happens by providing spaces, engaging in communities, engaging in conversations with individuals who put that at the forefront. It's like, hey, I'm trying to share this with you, but don't take it from me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So that's a vibe. I appreciate you sharing that. And I appreciate that the cafe really allows that to be, you know, a vibe. You walk in there, I know when I walk in there and I'm in line, I hear people asking the baristas or the cashiers questions about like, what is this? Where does this come from? What's that? Like, and then I overhear conversations. Wow, you see that? That's really beautiful. Like, oh, asking people, hey, where's that flower from? Like, where's this? Like about the paintings and the murals. So like, you guys really create a space that encourages people to dive a little bit deeper into their thought process, ask more questions, and maybe you do a little bit better job, you know, sharing and not taking, you know what I'm saying? So
that's cool that they do that.
For sure.
We definitely teach them to do that, and we find that the people who like to work with us the longest are the ones who feel connected or are interested in it. Also, I kind of didn't answer your question. I'm sorry. You asked about the vibe of the cafe. So although I talked about them a little bit, we have our main colors are this like kind of a turquoise sky blue and like a red orange. And that was actually kind of taken from my hometown in New Mexico because the adobe is like a red orange, and then turquoise, this turquoisey blue is very popular. We just felt those colors meshed well together. They're really beautiful. And corazon means heart. So yeah, the logo is like a heart with a little steam coming from the top. So it's like a heating heart. But
it's really cute. It's really cute. I love it.
And then as far as the paintings go, I painted them on both occasions.
My dog.
Thank you. So again, when you don't have anything, you figure it out. But they're all like influential people in Latin America. So like for example, we have Basquiat. Well, he was actually American, but he was Afro-Latino. And he was a very famous artist. Super cool. One of like the first to ever be popular in America or to ever be like respected, and his story was amazing. So we have him. We had a Brazilian woman, her name's Maria Fanchuela, and she was like an activist in Brazil who was murdered, and she was Afro-Latina. Let's see, we also got Eva Paron. She was one of the first ladies in Argentina, and she gave back to the poor a lot. Like she would open schools, she'd open hospitals for people who never had it. So we have people like that. That's who I like to paint, is people who like represented more than just like
that's where questions happen.
Famous, you know?
That's where those questions happen, where they're like, hey, who's that? And now you get to share a part of these different cultures from around the world, and you guys weren't like picky only Argentinians, you know, or only Mexicans, you know, you're sharing different cultures and allowing to be a space where everyone can feel home and comfortable and you know, like I was saying, I've definitely overheard people ask questions, and your guys' employees do a great job answering them with like kindness and love, which then opens up that door for people to be like, yeah, go in there, ask questions. They'll answer them. You know, like people go home and talk about that. You know what I'm saying?
That's what you want, you know.
Cafes, coffee shops. They're literally, in my opinion, the foundation of community. Anything community starts in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
First conversation around creating a nonprofit, coffee shop. First conversation around creating startups and businesses, coffee shops. First conversation around a new food that you're gonna cook to launch your pie company, coffee shops. You know what I'm saying? Like everything's coffee shops. How do you feel when you go to work? Do you feel like community, like I can't wait to overhear some cool conversations, or are you like, or are you in the zone? You like, bro, let's get this money, let's go, let's take care of our customers and go. What's your vibe like? Because fun fact, as much as I want to claim that, oh no, I remember seeing you all the time. I actually remember you twice now. Now I'm putting. So by the way, this is the first time we're meeting officially in person, but I remember seeing you twice now. And now I know you be here more than that. Don't worry, I'm not.
I'm like, oh my god.
But I'm saying like now your face. I'm putting the two faces together. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, this person and this person is the same person.
Right.
So yes. Anyways, are you like more in the super in the zone? Like let's get this work done. Boom, 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 boom. Or are you like, what's your vibe? You like talking to people in the coffee shop in general? This is just a general question for you. Like, what's your vibe in the coffee shop?
I think it depends. The Westport one is smaller, so it's easier to have conversations. But the Crossroads one is big, and we're always busy, so it's like you need to hustle.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy talking to our regulars. That's one of my favorite parts. Is like, you know, you have these people you see every day. You get to know them so well. Like they become your friends, and they're like, hey, let's go. I'll do this. And they're like, you know, they start inviting you places, or they're just awesome. Like, so I think both. But when I'm there, I'm like, I'm working.
Yeah, understandable. Do you ever spend time there? Like, imagine you're not working. Do you ever spend time there just chilling, like meeting, like for example, if this wasn't a podcast and I was like, hey, I just want to connect and just talk about your life real quick. Let's link somewhere. Are you gonna be like, let's go to Cafe Corazon, or are you gonna be like another place?
Well, it depends, because sometimes when I'm there, like I've had like friend conversations or business conversations there, And then I have one of my baristas, which bless them, I love them, but they'll be like, hey, this is going on, I need help. And I'm like, right now? Like,
really?
like,
and you're like, wait, yeah.
like,
It's a family business, gotta go.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm like, I don't know if this is like really important, if this is really important and I cannot get away from it, I probably should go somewhere else.
Understandable.
But
it's not conducive for 100% focus on what you're supposed to be meeting about. I understand that.
Because usually
That
someone
sense.
asks me, hey, where's this?
Exactly, and you're like, I'm not on shift right now, but you can't really say that because
I'm always on shift.
you're always on shift. That's your job.
There's no such thing.
Exactly. So I do want to dive into fair trade. What does that mean? You quickly went over it, but can you dive a little bit deeper for people who have no idea what that means?
Yeah.
And also, just I assume you guys do. I don't know if you guys do. So sorry if I put you on the spot and you guys don't. But also like shopping local and having local,
we do,
you know,
though. Yeah.
products inside of your business. Talk about maybe some of your favorite products, or maybe why you guys decided to make sure you integrate local, you know, people and businesses into your guys' business. And then last but not least, and most importantly, talk about fair trade, what that even means.
Right. So as far as local, everything is local.
Mm-hmm.
Like from the candles to everything. We really like to support local. I don't want to buy from chains or like from China where they're making something and then I sell it to you for $1,000 and make a bunch off of it. It's all local. We like to support local. We mainly support local indigenous people, local black people, local women. That's mainly like everybody that we shop with, and Latino. We also do this cool thing at a Crossroads location called First Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was going to be my next question. So cool. Go ahead.
So as far as local, First Fridays is cool because if you're an artist, you sell something, a product or a service, you can set up your table at our coffee shop and we don't charge you. You can sell whatever you want and then you take it home. And it gets packed in First Fridays.
It sure does.
If you ever want to be a vendor, email the cafe. It's in our website, cafecorazonkc.com. I'm always choosing people for that. Sometimes we'll have salsa classes too in the back.
That was this last Friday, I believe.
That was super fun.
Yeah, I was walking by again. I just moved to Crossroads, so I was like, you know what? To be honest, I'm always asleep at like 8 p.m. So I typically don't like go out. But I was, let me go and walk around for a little bit. So I was walking around, and I was like, oh shit, it's First Fridays because I started seeing people out.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah. And then I'm walking past Listen, this is a funny thing. Basically, if you're walking through Crossroads and it's your first time down there on First Fridays and all of a sudden you run into a really busy packed area and you like trying to find your way through, no, you right in front of Cafe Corazon because it's popping. It's popping for sure. So this last Friday was popping. Continue, sorry.
No, you're good. It's true. It does get really packed. It's so fun too.
Yes.
It's like boom, boom, boom.
People are smiling like mud.
Yeah.
That's all you see. That's all you see for the 10 seconds you try to walk past it.
Right. No, for real. That's so funny. But yeah, so fair trade or beyond fair trade, basically what that means is, just to break it down for you, so there's a lot of companies, I'm not gonna say who, but they will buy out coffee farms and sometimes whole countries of coffee farms. Like, they're big corporations, but basically they buy them out and then they don't pay the workers anything. There's workers working with their children, there's children working, and they're in bad conditions, and then they're treating them badly. Like, we don't think about that because we're here in America and we think people would say something, but there people, like, that stuff just flies. So nobody knows. Like investigators have to go and investigate these places in secret to figure out what's going on. So basically, fair trade means we know that that's not happening at this farm. And the farms that we buy from, like the one in Mexico, we know that it's been investigated and that it's all good. Like, workers are being paid fairly. They're having good hours, but not hours that are like too extensive. Their
like
kids
19.
aren't working with them.
Right.
Not like 20 hours a day. Like, so, and we do pay a higher price for it, but it's definitely worth it, because I I don't subscribe to slavery. Like, and if we're gonna
That part.
literally, like, we think that that's part's gone in the world, but it's not gone. Like, it's happening everywhere. Even the batteries in our phones are from a slave trade that's going on right now. So, you know, just being conscious of that, like, it's good that we're all conscious of the products we buy. It's hard when we're in America where everything's accessible. Like, we can get absolutely anything at the Walgreens down the street,
Snap of a
but
finger.
we don't know where it came from.
And
And
don't take the time to investigate it either.
no, like, we don't care. Like, whatever, who cares if 5-year-old made this? I mean, it's kind of true, it's sad, but yeah, beyond fair trade means that where we get our coffee from, we have an Ethiopian blend, we have a Brazilian blend, a Mexican blend. Those are super good. And then our main blend is those combined together.
Nice. I didn't even know that. I'm gonna have to try that this week.
It's good.
I like that.
And we sell them online or at the shop too.
I love it. I love it. And I want you to tell me about your or addiction to coffee. Do you have an addiction to coffee, or do you not have an addiction to coffee? At this point, you're in the shop all day long, you smelling it and all that. So is it like it'll get it away from me, or is it like I can't get enough of it, or is it like a nice little in the middle?
It's definitely in the middle.
Okay, good. A good place to be. We look.
Because coffee is a lot if you drink too much. But what I really love is yerba mate more than coffee, actually.
Again, that feels fun.
Basically, what yerba mate is it's this loose leaf tea. They drink it in South America, mainly Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. They drink it in other places too. It comes from a plant called Paraguensis, and it's actually originally an indigenous drink. So the indigenous would do this because they said it had cures to diseases, health, and it does. So they dry the leaf, and then you mush it up, and you basically drink it in this thing. There's a whole ritual. I wish I had it here so I could show you guys. But there's something called a bombilla. It used to be pumpkins. The indigenous would hollow a pumpkin and dry the pumpkin out, but we have metal ones at the cafe. Then you have a straw that has a filter at the end called a bombilla. Basically, you're drinking this loose leaf tea. You can drink it with anything, like milk, water, juice. You can make it sweet, sour, whatever. Sometimes I even put mint leaves or rose petals in mine.
Sounds fire.
It's really good. So, super good for you, high in antioxidants, really good for your immune system. Messi from Argentina. They won the World Cup, and they brought pounds of yerba mate to the World Cup. And if you look at them, sometimes they're drinking it because people use it as a pre-workout.
Yeah, it's an amazing pre-workout. And for anybody out there who's a huge fan of Andrew Huberman, although I already knew about yerba mate like years ago, so we already, your boy already knew it was amazing. We ahead of the game out here, you know what I'm saying?
For a long time.
But no. If you're a big fan of Andrew Huberman, he's somebody that you find to be a trusted resource in the health and science area. He has plenty of content out there about yerba mate, the benefits, as well as how to integrate it into your day, timing, things like that. If you're super into that aspect of wellness. Now, if you just want to try it, implement it in your day on your own time, go do it. You'll be happy.
Yes.
Now,
So good.
we've talked about your upbringing. We've talked about mom and pops. We talked about the Muffin Man. We talked about Cafe Corazon.
Oh my God, she's good.
Now, I want to talk to you a little bit more to, finish off the last few minutes of this podcast talking about what I would be safe to say is a really important and probably a very integral part of your life, I could assume. But art. You've mentioned here and there about how you've painted things for Cafe Corazon. But we got an art piece of yours above our head. We know that I know you have some art on your website, which we'll have you plug, or I'll plug in the link in bio. But just talk about what art means to you. How would you define art? And then maybe share one or two favorite pieces you've worked on. It doesn't have to be anything specific. You should do whatever your top 2 favorite pieces of yours are.
Okay. So I love art. My grandpa, who is from Buenos Aires, Argentina, I lived with him for part of my life, and he was an artist. He did sculpting, painting, amazing work. when he passed away is when I really started to do it. So I believe when someone dies, sometimes they give you something. And I felt like he gave me art. So after that, I started to paint a lot. And I've varied in everything. Like I've tried portraits, which is something I like. I do more of like realistic portraits. I've tried moss art like this, abstract, everything. But I think my favorite painting I've ever done, I sold it already, but it's a heart, like an anatomical heart, and it's bleeding out, and it has mirrors, like broken mirrors around it, so you kind of like see yourself within it. But I love art. I think it's like a therapy. It helped me through some dark times, some times where I felt like I didn't want to be here anymore. I felt like it made me always get out of my bunk, because I don't know, you just focus, and you just, when you let it flow and you let go and you're not restricting yourself, that's when the magic happens. You just gotta like not judge yourself. It teaches you to not judge yourself when you flow.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that is one real thing that I appreciate about art, not being a super engaged artist, because I believe everyone's an artist in their own right.
Right.
Now, one could say I'm not
too.
an artist, but one could also say they are.
I think you are, yeah.
So,
all are in our ways.
so I say that to say that one thing I have been able to appreciate about art is like, wow, okay, I'm not judging myself here, finally.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you look at it, and don't get me wrong, I found myself like, wow, this is ugly. But then being reminded that no, that's not, like it can be beautiful if someone decides that it's beautiful, you know what I'm saying?
For sure, yeah.
And it's like somebody might find this interesting. And I never really painted or did much art in my life, but I do have 4 paintings that are funny because they remind me of like very integral moments of my life, where for some reason I was painting at that time, and like it would just, so like one painting is like really colorful with like the acronym ROG like kind of indented it. It's hard to see it, but it's like behind the paint or whatever.
What did it
and
mean?
ROG used to be like a thing me and all my homies used to say when we were like sophomores or juniors in high school, which meant respect our grind. It was like our little thing.
That's kinda
We used to
cute.
all go and
I like that.
practice, like trying to become great football players because we wanted to go to the NFL and shit like that. But it was cool because as young people, we were all uniting as young African American, Afro Latino men, like getting together and trying to improve ourselves at a young age. And unfortunately, you know, some of the friends from that friend group, again, like I was sharing at the beginning, just good and bad things, whatever. As you can see, I'm even struggling to talk about it. So long story short, you know what I'm saying? Some tough things happen. So it's like a reminder, wow, that was an integral moment. ROG, I forgot about that, you know what I'm saying? Or there was another thing, my brother was a part of this, like he's an artist, like a musical performer, and he was a part of this group. And I remember going to New York while he was a part of that group in the summers and like hanging out with them. And it was like a cool moment in my life to like see just different cultures. New York's filled with different cultures. So just seeing all of them make music together and vibe together, New York accents, New York culture, I felt so cool when I come back to Kansas City, because I'm like, yeah, I know the new slang, I know the new vibe, blah, blah, blah. And so like seeing that painting just reminded me of that. So it's just cool things like that. I can see how like in 10 years you might look at this and it might give you a certain emotion about a certain time period of your life. So
I agree with that, because it gives you an idea. Even when you look at famous artists, when you look at their art, you're like, oh, that's what was going on in their life at that time. Like they were thinking about this, or they were wanting this, or so yeah. It's definitely like a timestamp.
For sure.
It lasts forever.
Forever. Facts. Like think about and there's so much history behind certain paintings based on what was happening at that time, what inspired it, what that painting might have even gone through. It might have been like, okay, this painting was actually created by this person, but then this colonizer took it, and then this, like there's just so much history behind all types of art. But thank you for sharing that, and we'll definitely plug the link to some more of your art in the link in not bio, but in the description. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. What I would like you to share last is a little bit more about your modeling career, why you decided to start modeling, what age, and maybe what do you find impactful about modeling for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I started when I was like 14. at that time, I didn't know. I was doing it for pure vanity. I didn't know what I was doing. I also didn't know how to be safe with it because, like, sometimes people can take advantage of you when you're young and you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking about modeling, even if you're an adult, be very careful. Always bring someone with you. Share your location. But I started to learn more about myself because I did modeling, but I also started doing like commercials and stuff. And you have to push yourself and do things you feel real uncomfortable doing. Like if you didn't grow up doing theater or anything, and you have to say a line, and they're like, say it like you're sad, and you're like, oh, I've never done this in my life. Like
I don't want to be sad.
Yeah, for real. So it does push you to like learn parts of yourself you never knew. So I appreciate people who do that because that's really hard to do. It's harder than it looks to become a character, but it's fun. But I would definitely say as I got older and then I started to do Miss Kansas City Latina, I started to realize also being in the modeling industry that it is still very much a backwards industry. Like for example, I've been to castings before and they'll line the girls up and they'll say, okay, if you're this height, go. If you're this skin color, you need to leave. Like they're very straight up about it, and that's really shitty. There's definitely a thing. Like I've had friends who are black here and they have a hard time getting gigs. It's such a thing, and it's so sad, and it's something that I would like to change. Like I feel like I've been casted so many times for the maid in a role because I'm Latina that I'm just like,
that's actually crazy though.
It's so normal though.
Yeah, that's crazy as shit. But sorry, continue.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
It's so sad, but I never go for those. And there have been times where I have spoken out and been like, why are you trying to send me this? Like, really? Are we in fucking 1920s? Like,
and to quickly interrupt, like I think what happens and why people don't, at the end of the day, straight up disrespectful, but why I feel like people don't feel disrespectful is because of like, what? We got to make it reality. That's what we see.
Right.
It's only reality because you continue to cast that as the reality. If we want to change the narratives for our cultures, for our people, not to say that if you're a maid, it's not a good job, but you get what I'm saying? Like, if we want to be able to change the perception that people have around a certain culture about the work they do or what they're capable of doing, then we have to show that more often. And being that you as a majority are in power and running these castings, running these shoots, you have to also stand up for it. But you don't know to stand up for it if I don't say something to you about it.
Right.
And then if you still choose to not stand up for it, then we know who you is and we ain't really trying to rock with you anyways. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
But I just wanted to quickly interrupt and say that because people might be like, well, I mean, that's what you see on TV. It's reality. You gotta keep it real. It's like we don't want to keep that as the only option. That's why people think they can only do certain things. If I only see a black dude sagging, shooting, gang banging on a show every time, I don't ever see a black lawyer. I don't ever see a black, I don't know, tech guru. I don't ever see a black coder. I don't ever see a black. If I don't see no black cooks, no black chefs, then I'm not gonna think that's for me. That is how media works. If you watch media, you learn that. That's what's engraved in your head. Your parents can do all that nice talking in your ear all you want, but if you see 13 hours a day of this showing that, then whatever your parents say for you 2 hours before bed don't really mean shit at the end of the day. So,
completely
sorry,
agree.
Quick rant. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you said that because it's true. Like, and that was one thing that I was like, you know what? Why should I, like, if I have a daughter and then she has to see that I did that, like, and she thinks that she has to be that, you know, or other little girls. So I was just like, you know what? Fuck it, we're not doing this. Also, a lot of countries look up to America because of our media, because we portray ourselves a certain way. And so whatever we portray, a lot of the world thinks it's that way. So
that's a bar.
So we have to be careful when we are in these positions where we have the option to be casted a certain way. We have to be very intellectual about it. We have to think, well, if I do play the maid, then shit, someone in Europe is gonna see it, someone in Africa is gonna see it, Asia, and they're gonna think that all Latinos are the maid. Same with like what you were saying. That's exactly what it will become. So
big facts.
Yeah.
Big facts.
So,
I have plenty of cousins that came to the States, plenty of friends that came to the States from Tanzania who were like, this is what I thought about black people.
Because they saw it on TV.
And now they don't have a good relationship with black people upon landing in the country for the first time. Immediately, if they see a
That's
black
terrible.
person, oh, they probably a thug.
Stereotype.
You know what I'm saying? Immediately, and that's your own people. You know what I'm saying? Well, you know, we're all each other's own people, in my opinion. But
I see
also,
what you mean.
that's your own people. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's really crazy, and that's definitely a big reality. But you were saying these are some of the negative things about modeling.
But there are things you can control too. You do not have to abide by them. You're nobody's little baby that they can bring around and control. You have an option. So that's something that I started to realize. Then I became Miss Kansas City Latina, and I felt like in a way it gave me a little more power amongst the people who would try to cast me that way, because now they're like, oh wow, like now they want to talk to me, or now they think that they want to start casting me as other things, which is good, but it's unfortunate because it was only because I became something that they thought was acceptable.
Yeah, that they thought was valid, right? Exactly.
But I do think that it is cool when people see themselves in you, especially children. They're so imprinted by us as adults. So like when I would go to school and I would talk to kids and I would tell them, you know, I would have these real conversations with them like I'm having with you right now, where I was like, look, we come from this in South America, this is what happened to your ancestors, so this is why you feel this way, so you need to like think about yourself that way. And kids understand that. They're not dumb.
At
so
all.
when
That's a bar too. Kids are very, very, very,
Smart.
very, very, very smart. Trust that. Trust them.
right.
I am not a parent, but also, and I'll take the backlash for that. Parents, your kids are smart.
They are though.
They know what you are saying. They know what they're watching. They know what they know. They are not dumb. Okay. Done. All right, go ahead.
I love the rants. No, but they're knowledge rants.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, yeah, just I think we have to be aware of things as a society, especially when we hold so much power in the media. And if we can control ourselves, we can actually control the media and other things going on around us. We all have very much power. I mean, if one person can like change the world, so can you. I mean, I know that sounds cliche to say, but we have like Nelson Mandela. We have people who follow him, whole liberations around one human being. So if you think you can't do it, like you're kind of a fool. You can do it. You just have to be aware of your things.
If you think you can't, you're a fool. That's the bar. That's the title of the podcast. There we go. That's the bar, man. There's so many more questions I have for you, but in the name of respecting both our listeners and our time.
Yeah, sorry,
sorry. No. I'm saying I will ask you 37 more questions happily, but you know, we not Joe Rogan. We don't do 5-hour podcasts. So. But either way, no. I really enjoy this podcast. We're definitely gonna have to run it back. I definitely want moms and pops on at some point. So maybe we might have to do like 5 episodes in the next 2 years just to get everybody in. But I definitely want to run it back. As you guys can probably see right now, as much as we're gonna do a little editing on the back end to try to make sure the audio is a little bit louder for you, but you know, because we all about transparency, I forgot my SD card, so we couldn't use the mics today. So we'll definitely run a part 2 back talking about even more topics that we weren't able to talk about today, but with the SD card and even better audio. But today, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm really thankful we were able to make this happen, meet in person. The final question I ask everybody on the Voices of Value podcast is, if it's your last day on earth, you're 105 years old, your great-great-grandkids are sitting here at your feet, they're looking up at you, but it's your last day. Whatever books you wrote, whatever podcasts you did, whatever videos you did are leaving with you, but you have to leave your great-great-grandkids with one piece of advice
Oh my God.
on how to live a good life. What are you going to tell them?
I would say nature is your cure to a lot of things. Go to nature, it will heal you. Always be honest and real. It cleans your heart and your soul. And I would also say, do whatever you want. This is your life. If you want to go to Europe tomorrow, just do it. You don't have much time. I think we do, but we don't. So just live your life. Have love in your heart. Amen.
Yeah, hey,
I don't know if that was good,
Yeah,
but-
that's it. Let's throw out the peace sign for the what's it called? The little screenshot for the YouTube. What is it? Thumbnail.
The
There we go.
thumbnail.
The thumbnail. All right,
3, 2.
3, 2, 1.